That is the end. Oh, I mean, we start talking about this.
Front row. Comes to the front row.
You're so tall.
Oh my. Real bad. That's why I like you in front row.
But trying to
Gotta do it, man.
lay down 2 seats. You're like this. I'm sorry, I'll try
That
this.
would be just like you here.
I know.
That's where you get to go, right?
Way around. I'm gonna stand.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. We are here, of course, tonight to celebrate the launch of Marmalade Parade, the new novel from MC Joudrey. You may wildly applaud that. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge, of course, that we are here in Treaty 1 territory, and the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Niniwak, and Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Worcestertown. We're so very grateful to all of you for joining us here tonight. We're also naturally grateful to Guernica Editions for publishing this fine novel and for making this evening a possibility. National Treasure George Toles was to host this evening originally, but regrettably he is under the weather. We'd like to extend the very best his way and wish him a speedy recovery. Luckily, we then undertook a bit of a ritual in an attempt to conjure a tulpa or something comparable for George, and what emerged was the form of local literary polymath Jonathan Ball, who's come on board to guide us in this conversation. That will take place immediately following a reading from Joudrey. Following that conversation, if time permits, there'll be an opportunity for you fine folks to ask questions, so let those percolate in your head throughout the evening. I'll then approach you in a non-threatening manner with this handheld microphone, just to ensure that all of your questions can be heard on the live stream. And I'll be back at the end of the night to review signing procedure. But for now, I have the immense pleasure of introducing tonight's guests. Your host for this evening, Jonathan Ball, PhD, Poet Laureate of Hell, writes fiction, poetry, comics, and films, most recently collaborating on a post-apocalyptic graphic novel, Last Breeds, and the surreal horror image comic, The Eye Collector. Jonathan owns and serves as editor for Stranger Fiction, the publisher of weird horror, science fiction, and fantasy, and hosts a podcast called Writing the Wrong Way, which teaches serious writers what the NFA didn't. Connect with Jonathan through his newsletter and get a free story at www.strangeinc.ca. Our featured guest, MC Joudrey, is an award-winning Canadian writer, artist, and designer. His second novel, Of Violence and Cliché, was released in 2013, followed by his collection of short stories, Charleswood Road, in 2014, which was nominated for a 2015 John Hirsch Award. His novel, Anonymous, was released in 2019 and won the Independent Publisher Gold Medal for Best Work of Fiction for Western Canada. It was also nominated for 2 Manitoba Book Awards, including the Margaret Lawrence Award for Best Work of Fiction. As a designer, his work has been awarded 4 Elquin Design Book Awards and the Manuela Diaz Manitoba Book Award for Design. He is also a book binder, and a number of his works are held in galleries internationally. Here to read from his work of cubist barrel prose, with thanks to Saber Goodhand, Marmalade Parade, please give a raucous welcome to MC Joudrey.
Hey, how's everybody doing? I feel pretty good about this because I promised Dilly that I'd read him something tonight, and I don't like reading from my own work, so this is kind of a rare treat, I think. But before I get started, I did. By the way, you can just call me Matt. Most people know me as Matt or George or Joudrey or Matt Joudrey, and I'm not 100% sure what's in a name, which brings me to a little brief summary here of names that I wanted to read off to you guys before I start the reading. In the novel, I do not use names. Given names and surnames are paradoxical, and this is explored. Names are also subject to eventual affliction of the Tiffany problem. The spelling of Tiffany, Tiffany, first appeared in the 1600s, although had it been used for the name of a child, then it would have been perceived as being out of place, as parents would have associated it with contemporary times. Just one example of how names have a profound subconscious effect on how characters are perceived in a book. I wanted to avoid this entirely. The other important question I'm asking is if the names we're given make up who we are. Yes, my name is Matt Joudrey, and I've been known as Matt Joudrey my entire life, but is that who I am? I didn't pick the name. It was assigned to me at birth before I had developed any kind of personality characteristics or even the ability for cognitive thinking and the cerebral power to formulate memories. Early in the novel, the protagonist gives the antagonist a nickname based on physical appearance. This social phenomenon is also explored. Names are strange, gossamer things tied to the spark of ember that glows inside of us. It's much easier to learn someone's name than to understand who they really are. We don't love their name, we love them. And when we think of that love, it isn't tied to the name, it's tied to the spark of ember inside them, the glow of who they are, the things they do, the way they move, the strengths and vulnerabilities. A song, a painting, a poem, a book. Is it the name we love or the work itself? Would we find the work any less poignant or moving if they were devoid of names? Or as Shakespeare said, a rose by any other name would it smell as sweet. Okay, so a little context here about what I'm about to read for you. It's very short, thank God. And it is a brief interlude. I have 3 interludes in the book. These are fractal in nature, and they're meant to be dislodged fragments of memory, which is what the book is concerned with. Interlude, the an element. Oh my, things are moving so slow. My hands look different. I hear my voice and it sounds different. I don't have a scar there, do I? I am not who I normally am. Whose feet are these? They are not mine, but I can move them. Light is bending. I never realized light was so agile. It is everywhere. I am alone. I've been alone for some time. Time does not exist here. I just know the feeling of what time represents, the cold mathematics, the idea of it as a unit of measurement. I am in a forest. It is warm. The air is humid. There is birdsong. There is insect chatter. A fragrance on the breeze. I know the season, but not its name. The foliage is thick with bloom. The leaves are silver. They are covered in glitter. It is a powder. I pluck a leaf from a tree. Glitter shimmers off the leaf and sparkles as it falls towards the earth below. I run a finger over the leaf. My fingertip is covered in silver glitter. I rub my finger and thumb together. Both sparkle now. My nose itches. I want to scratch it, but I can't. The mask I am wearing prohibits me from touching my face. It purifies the oxygen I am taking in. The glitter is poison. I look at my fingertips. Bismuth. The pace quickens. I am young, too young to be left alone. My father doesn't know. I didn't tell him I wasn't going into the dust. I can't help it. I need to know. It's what I am. I know now that this is not the last time I'll disobey him. I know he knows that too. He'll learn to tolerate it, then accept it, then he'll embrace it. He'll take me to faraway places so I can chase what I believe exists. It must exist. It is more likely to exist than to not exist. Faster. Maybe I'll find it along the coast, maybe in ancient granite. I could sift through black sand, and there it is, a volcano trapped in ancient ice. Maybe it's right in front of my nose. It could be here, it could be there, like everything, anything, nothing. Oh, the excitement, the thrill. But I must believe. I can never let that belief falter. I know I shouldn't. I've been warned. It's too dangerous. I have to wear it until I have cleaned up their mess. I lift the mask from my face. The impression of time is with me. The years have advanced. I'm older, but more importantly, I've matured. I have learned to hone my focus, close my range, and use the clues the natural world has provided to me. I am at the mouth of the cave. It is my 71st attempt. It isn't wise to be going in after dark, but once in its bowels, natural light won't play a factor. I can hear the chatter on the roof. Bats. I take the sample from the tiny container, knowing it exists, even though what I have is slightly bigger than a pinhead. It's enough to spur me on. I don't need hope. I need tenacity. Maybe they are the same thing. The blood has stopped, and the surface where the wound ran freely has crusted over. The leg has gone numb. I've been here, trapped here for 2 days. I no longer hear the clicking of the bats. Not a good sign. The plate shifted and gave way. I'm lucky to be alive. For however much longer that will be, water supply is depleted. I think of him. It's come to that. I wish he was here. He'd know what to do. Well, he's not. So figure it out. This speed, everything is blurred. I have to make a decision soon. I'm looking at the pocket knife, closing and opening the blade. These things almost never work. Blood sugar's so low I can't even be trusted. I hear the clicking of bats. But it's not bats. No, it's the chamber. The wall cracks and comes free. Shards split my leg open wide, but I am free. I scream, then cry. Then I get myself together and wrap the wound closed. As I begin to calm, I notice it. The powder all over the room, all over me. I lean forward. I know what it is before I pick up the specimen. I vibrate, I blur, I'm gone.
Maybe the second of the chest. So, Matt, I have kind of an odd question to kick things off. So,
Thank God. We don't want any normal ones, my friend.
so you got this story where, we have this character that's sort of thrown into a situation. They don't really know they're in a strange environment. They don't quite comprehend what's going on around them. They don't quite know what happened before this point. They don't quite know who they are. They don't quite know maybe even what they are. On a certain level, they're feeling the way through the world. They're trying to figure this out. They're finding objects. They're finding descriptions of objects. And they're piecing the story together as we're piecing the story together in this sort of strange and slow, as you say, cubist manner.
Right.
Well, it's fairly fast, but for them it's slow. For us, it's very fast. And we're never really necessarily getting a full, complete picture of both things. Now, what do you make of the fact, Matt, that when the Resident Evil video games do this. Or that mainstream storytelling approach in video games, that a 15-year-old kid is barely literate, has no problems immersing themselves in that story. But if you and I are doing it, we're being difficult at least.
Yeah, right. Well, the first thing is of course, books, for the most part, especially novels, they have no visual cues, right? It's different than a graphic novel where, you know, you can explain the narrative without any text at all, just through the illustrations. You don't have that in a novel. And so it's up to us to be able to explore these themes in a way that, and I want to be really clear about this, I try to keep my text as spare as possible. I try to eliminate all use of adverbs and dialogue attribution, because I just feel it slows the pace. So it's gone. I chop it free, right? To me, it's just, at least my style, it's fat. So I cut it free. In this particular case, you know, when it comes to, you know, I guess, aligning it with the idea of a video game premise, you know, the fragmentation of that and that story, I guess, is allows you to move a little quicker through the pace.
And the finding out, like, I feel like there's a story, there's an element to that structure, that and to this approach you're taking, where it's not about delivering a story to a reader so much as, you know, letting them find out.
Right. I think that's probably the most astute point is that I'm allowing the reader to do their own work. I'm allowing them to use their own faculties to build upon the story. I don't like giving out a laundry list of what the character looks like. I like working it into the story, if anything at all. In fact, in most cases, I feel that if a character is written well, people will just develop what they look like anyway. They'll develop what they sound like in their head. And that is the most important thing to me, is having somebody have that connection with a character, that it would be completely different from their friend or family member, or even what I intended to write.
And so, in what way is the science fictional background elements important to you in that kind of quest? Because you do this, what we would otherwise, in some respects, this is a sci-fi dystopia novel in a certain arguable respect, but it's so far backgrounded that you could miss that side of the element.
Sure.
And there's a level where I don't know that it matters.
It doesn't.
Level.
The science fiction aspect of this book is meant to feel like it's happening right now. That everything that there's nothing really that happens in the book that feels out of the ordinary. At least it's not supposed to. What's supposed to happen is that as you read this, you feel like all of this is really today. Like that is not, and I know that there are aspects of science fiction storytelling where you can have you know, a story set 100 years in the future and it still feels a little bit like today. But this was meant to feel like it was happening right now.
So to what degree do you feel, or were you thinking, why did you bring these elements with the conglomerate, this corporate,
Right.
Which again, there's this large sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, architectural aspect to the, you know, for lack of a better word, the world building or the world around these characters, where they're not necessarily interacting with that world in too many ways, but they're always sort of, you know, operating under the shadow of these things that have happened.
Right.
And this corporatized sort of, you know, husk of a conglomerate that they see out the window, which has, you know, some continued interactivity with their lives and situation. We get all these fragmentary texts at the near the end of the book that more directly relate to this company that has claim over these objects, and so on. And I'm curious to know when and why you decided to build that aspect of the novel into it.
Yeah, so to me that is I mean, it's a linear metaphor to the premise of the novel, which is, of course, memory, right? Everything is, the foundation of the novel is steeped in memory. So the decay of these old structures, to me, is aligns with the decay of the memories that the antagonist and the protagonist are dealing with. And also, it helps drive the mystery of the plot, which is that we don't know why these two characters have been brought together. And we also don't know what the relationship is, if any at all. And so there is a lot of these tiny sort of ethereal pieces, fragments that are, they could just disappear at any moment. And so that aspect is built into the mystery. And these structures allow for that sort of constant feeling to be generated in the reader.
What I like about the, I really like narrative situations where the character and the reader are aligned in their, emotional experience in some way. And so I feel like the, where you have this character who's, sort of lacking in the memories, in a manner of speaking, or they have these fragmentary memories, they don't quite know how they cohere. A lot of their memories are older memories, not recent memories, and so on. And so they're sort of trying to figure out what's, they're kind of, again, moving through this space, finding things in the house, finding, anxious boxes full of stuff, going through them. And they're trying to piece it together, like what is sort of going on here, just like the reader on some about this. And I always feel like it's a strong technique to put the reader and the character, and some character, whether it's the main character or not, but some character in a position that's analogous or parallel to one another.
Right.
And I'm curious to know, like, is that something that is that kind of thing the kind of thing you think about with constructing a book like this, or are you just sort of moving through like the plot or this character? Like, are you thinking about that kind of architectural aspect of aligning the readers, like manipulating the reader, I should say? And
well, the goal is always to manipulate the reader a little bit, I think, right? To bend them towards what you want them to be feeling or experiencing, the desires of the book, the hopes for the book. But I think that at least I shouldn't speak for any writer, I'm just going to speak for myself. My experience is that when I write a specific character, I have a really good idea of what I want them to be and how they fit into the narrative and the plot. But as you go through it, there is going to be moments where organic things happen and you develop that character and take a left turn somewhere where it just feels right. And I think that I mean that's done in a very minimalist fashion, but at least for me it is.
It's you mentioned that the book is about these memory or how memories fails in some respects, and
Well, I want to be clear about that. Yes, the plot is driven by the idea of the possibility of memory failing, but it's never fully decided, at least I hope not, that that's the case. It's just a matter of can we believe or not believe and trust these things.
well, what I always think about with memories is the word remembering is very much a misnomer in many respects, because of course we don't remember things in the sense of recalling them up from some place. We're always constructing the memory every time we have it. And so of course they change. There's this great moment in the book where this one character's talking about their earliest memory of this red toy that they got, and the other character mentions, well, how do you know it wasn't green?
Right.
What is the proof? You remembering this one way. And if you've ever had an argument about this kind of thing with a person, like remembering something differently, or even just an argument about the color you're looking at right now. Like, I don't know if you're
The
very.
lines in a
well, I'm sorry.
movie, the,
What color is that chair? You know, sometimes
That's right.
you get arguments about things like this.
Yep.
And it seems surreal to you on a certain level. Of course, you remember it this way, you see it that way. It's hard often to get around and get outside of, even if intellectually you can understand it yourself, the
right,
science of it. It's hard to get around the fact that you have your own experience and perspective, and that you're always taking it as true on a certain level.
well, these are, this is why, memories, recall, it's so fascinating, because our entire lives are based upon this. It's predicated upon the reliability of remembering things. So much so that our everyday arguments with our loved ones, or trying to tell people how to get somewhere and giving them directions, it's all based on remembering. And we prove it every day that we're not that great at it. You know, and that's you know, and it's our most important faculty. It's what, like I said, it's what informs us on who we are. And then nostalgia comes in, and that creeps in and plays a huge factor too, right? The idea of emotions being also attached to objects and memory, and these fragments that, you know, it's a giant pool of it, and we're trying to work our way through that and wade our way through that.
I like that phrasing you just had, which was that memory informs us, you know, on who we are.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you know, just being coterminous with who we are, or what have you.
And that's why I wanted to quickly mention about names, right? Because you know, we're known as these people, but the names aren't what make us what we are. And that's why I chose to eliminate the use of conventional names in the book.
How's all this tied to collecting? Because there's this other idea, you know, but but you get what I'm going with it.
Oh, it's so intimately tied to the mania of collecting, which I hate to say that I'm terribly afflicted by it. I collect everything. And fortunately, and I know that Alana would argue this heavily, but I do think that I have some level of control over it. It's not great, but I have a tiny, and I do have enough self-awareness to know that it's gotten out of hand in certain brackets. But there's so much emotion and memory and nostalgia tied to these things. Even especially, okay, so I'll give you an example. I have a number of first edition books that date back as early as the 1940s. I wasn't born then. What does that have to do with me? I didn't live through the Second World War. Or these aren't things that that have any material impact on who I am because I lived through them. Yet they're in my collection. So what's the psychology on that?
Well, it's an interesting question in some ways, and you know, in the novel, you're sort of, you know, one answer to the question is, you know, there are certain events that have taken place where certain objects have become significant. Like, so there's a painting, for example, it's sort of clear that this painting was a significant painting for various reasons. It has to do with, you know, one of the characters who's in an invention, and all those sorts of, and there's sort of, you know, these moments, the sort of historical moment of this painting, and this sort of, you know, question of where it has gone.
Yeah.
And then there's these other objects that are still around that are being auctioned off at one point.
You're doing great.
Have all connected. They're almost like insignificant objects that have almost nothing in and of themselves to do with anything, except that they have this provenance of how they connect to this other object that's missing. And so to me, it's an interesting way to kind of think about objects and collecting as you know, you have these sort of moments or these events that have some sort of magnitude or power. And they themselves are gone perhaps, but they, you know, have this almost imminence in their weird reflections in other objects, or something else becomes significant because of this.
Right. Well, there's an impermanence to the permanence, right? Which is that we hold these objects, but we never really own them because eventually they become somebody else's. And so, I mean, you know, an engagement ring that's handed down to the next generation. There's a level of ego attached to that, where we believe that that object will be cherished by the next generation, maybe even so much so that they might wear it themselves for their wedding ring. And there is this, and I'm not saying that there isn't this beautiful romanticism attached to a story like that, there is, but there is also this impermanence to the object, to the owner. And that's why I think having this second sort of part in the novel, which is just entirely an auction and discussing the objects that a person owned, and can we ever really tell who somebody is based on the objects that they own? Is there a story attached to it? Is there an imprint left on it?
Yeah, and some of the objects we've seen in the previous narrative, you know.
Yes, they do play in, that's correct.
Other ones, it's implied they had a position in this narrative.
That's right.
But then you have some where they're just absent objects, but this object connects to it. And so it's an interesting like web work of things. You know, one that it's not really a good comparison, but the novel I was thinking a lot about when I was reading this was The Crying of Lot 49. Only
right,
because
yeah.
of that.
The screaming that comes
Yeah.
across the sky.
Now, it's not really like that book in any way other than having this auction that things are going towards in a certain level. But there is though that similar, you know, idea that we're circling around something rather than really arriving at it.
Yeah. I don't like for me, I love the idea of well, first off, the narrator is completely unreliable. And that makes sense because he's struggling with the possibility that his memories are fading, eroding away. And other memories have evolved in such a way that they're completely unreliable, or at least he thinks so, right? And then that interaction with the protagonist or the antagonist is that they're both in a similar position, in that they're both completely unreliable to each other. And there's this vulnerability that stretches throughout the novel that I hope people feel. Because to me, it's, you know, failing mental faculties is we see it in so many of our loved ones as they get older, and it's such a terrible disease, but also what is so horribly fascinating about it is that we've watched somebody who we've known for 50 years suddenly not know us at all, that there is nothing. And that just is devastating. So my hope is that gets a little unpacked in the novel in a fragmented and abstract way, because I think there is an abstraction to that as you're working through it.
Have you encountered people who want to pin you down on what's going on in the book? Like, do you find that? I find like whenever I write I don't know if I've written a story as strange as this, but if I've read a story that has that strangeness to it, there's a certain type of audience member who wants to, you know, have me strip away all the strangeness in an explanation and tidy things up.
Right.
When to me, well, what's a dream? What's real? You know, these kinds of questions.
Well, we do owe the reader.
Do we owe them? Like,
We owe them a little something. Sure,
I feel like,
they bought the book.
but it's such an uninteresting division, reality and dreams, and you know,
Right.
things that are real, things that are false. it's not a scientifically valid perspective from the point of view of how your brain sees things. And it's not necessarily a narratively satisfying approach to just, indicate, this thing is real, this thing happened, this thing's a real memory. There's a great distinction in one point in the novel where the character mentions this thing is true and it didn't happen.
Right.
And they make a clarification that, well, there's things that are true but are not in the historical record. And so you can take that in two ways. One is that, the author of history, excluding things.
I forgot all the reasons.
Yeah, it's a great moment. There's the other way of looking at it where this more ecstatic truth is being discussed, like to use Herzog's phrase, this idea that things can be true in a spiritualistic or a meaning method, but not necessarily factual.
Right.
And I'm curious to know that to what degree you think that question of whether a memory is true or not is even interesting.
I hope it is. I wrote the damn thing to be based on that. Yeah.
What does it serve us if we know the truck is red?
Right, exactly. And I think that's the beauty at least the subtle beauty in these memories is that they are fleeting, and that they do start out in this beautiful full color spectrum and then slowly go gray on us. And the first part in the novel is there is no color. Everything is in halftone. And so this idea of trying to reclaim and find your way back to that original origin point, I find is so powerful. And that's my hope is that the reader feels that. I want to give them that. I want to give them that possibility of, just a glimmer of hope as they work through it. I mean, the entire first part is probably the most, if anything, traditional novel experience. And then the next two parts are certainly a little bit more experimental in nature. I mean, the first part is too.
My last kind of question before I think we can open it up for other questions.
Sure.
Is, I have to ask you as a Pink Floyd fan, what's
Yeah.
with the Pink Floyd reference at the start of the book?
Yeah, I think you're the only person that has discovered that so far. The book has been reviewed, and I think very good, and I mean really well thought out, articulated reviews, which you don't see that much anymore. So I was very pleased that the reviewers really sort of understood the book, but everybody missed that. What Jonathan is talking about is the very first line in part one. Is right below the chapter heading is leave, don't leave me. It's a line from a Pink Floyd song. And
Breathe on Dark Side of the Moon.
yeah. And so, you know what? I'm not going to answer that one.
Such a good question.
I'm gonna let people determine how they feel about it for themselves as they read the book.
Are there other questions? Not about Pink Floyd?
Don't worry, John's got a microphone, so he'll throw it at you if you raise your hand.
So do I, but he doesn't want to answer.
Despite encouragement from your wife that I should call you out on a number of things we were discussing.
Thanks, Lana.
I would like to ask.
She's supposed to be on my side, It's supposed to work.
Because she is on your side, I'm just going to ask a question about the book.
Asking for a friend.
Now, I haven't read it, but I'm flipping through it. The designer eye catches these whole reams of redacted content. Where black space occupies information. Do you want to talk about the choices related to that?
Sure. So that actually involves the plot. The plot being a mystery. And I won't give any more away than that because I don't want to do too many spoilers. But there is a mystery, and the subplot to that mystery is that there is a corporate company involvement in the background, and they've got documents, and those documents surrounding this this entire, you know, novel's plot contents is fragmented. It's redacted in that they only have pieces themselves. Again, a not so subtle metaphor to the fragmentation of memories and the erosion away of that kind of stuff. Right. So there is that aspect. The second piece is that, you know, it messes with the reader. It doesn't give them everything, and I don't want to give them everything. They don't deserve it.
We'll just have to mess with the read.
To some degree, for sure.
Any questions from anyone else? It's a very mysterious book. I know that we are talking about this book and not saying anything about it on some levels as well, but
well, it's a very difficult book to talk about in that way, because it is a short novel. It moves very quickly. The pace is very quick, and there are just giving anything away really gives the rest of it away. So,
speaking of names, how did you come up with the title?
oh, Brenda. Okay, I really want to tell you, but that would be the biggest reveal of all. This is really not good for you guys. It's not doing anybody any favors here. I will say this, that I had the idea for its relation to the story, the plot, before I actually had the fully fleshed out title. So that's the best I can give you, but anything else I think would, I hate to say it, ruin the reader's experience. I'm going to leave it at that. I promise if somebody else asks a question, I'll answer it in its entirety.
real spelling question.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that I'm going to force you to answer the Pink Floyd question.
All right, well, that's fair. There's this, I find that I do some of my best reflective thinking in two places. The first place is in my car when I'm alone. And when I get the opportunity to not, which is very rare, but to get the opportunity to not be in a rush, where I don't really have to be anywhere at a certain specific time. I just know that I'm going somewhere, and I listen to music. I'm one of those terribly unfortunate old souls that is still listening to music on physical media in the car. And Pink Floyd does from time to time find its way into my rotation. And there's something about that reflective thinking where I get lost in my own thoughts to such a degree where things feel quite powerful to me. And I find that even more so at night when there's very little traffic and the street lights have come on and I'm driving and Pink Floyd was on the was in the car, and that line came on, and it felt like the impact of that line was so perfect for the narrative structure in the first part of the novel, which is leave, don't leave me. Which one is it? And it just feels like it's a two-pronged question. And is the person asking you to leave or to stay? So there's the answer. The second place is in the shower.
Hi, Matt. I think that segues into my question a little bit, which was because I think the majority of us haven't read this book, so it's hard to ask anything about it. So I thought because I think that people like a little behind the scenes picture that I might ask you about.
Sure.
Like as a writer, how does this stuff end up on the page, and what are your creative processes? Like, do you have a structure to it, or like what games do you play to keep writing? You know, there's mysteries. I've experienced writing things where things present themselves to you that you didn't plan. How does all this stuff tumble out for you, and like what is it like behind the scenes day to day as a writer that we might not know?
Yeah. Wow. I have way too many different ways of keeping track of these tidbits, these nuggets, these kernels, these little fragments and pieces of things that I think are of value to the potential book that I'm working on. And it could be anything. It could be, you know, I'm waiting at a corner for a friend and I see, so I had to go down to CTV on Friday to drop off a copy of my book because I'm supposed to be on the show on Monday. This couple who were maybe 19 years old. One rode up on a BMX bike and one rode up on a skateboard. There was a woman and a man, and they were quite young. And it was just such a spectacularly romantic moment between them where they showed up and he rode his bike to work, well, to her work where she picked up her skateboard, they rode together, and then she went into CTV to go to work. And before they did, they kissed, and I was just sort of sitting out there, you know, like an idiot holding my book, like, you know, like that was something. And I watched this unfold. And I don't know, it hit me. It was a little bit of a really lovely moment. Those are the types of little things that I think it's important as an artist that you pay attention to. I mean, what somebody's magnificent painting that they paint, what were the influences there? What drove that forward? When they write an album and oh, well, there's got to be so many different things that just play factors into the coalescence of that. And this is similarly how I work, except it all ends up on sticky notes and little tidbits in my phone and fragments on my computer and quick notes and little notepads that I lose and never know where they are. So I'm sure there's something really great out there that I've lost.
Do you have anything you keep trying to get into a book and it just you can't get it?
Yeah. I've got a whole just
What's the
dead
one
letter
thing
office
like-
on my computer of amazing fragments that are completely useless and never end up anywhere. But I keep them again because I have the terrible mania of a collector and because I have the ego of the author to believe that one day it will end up being something. So there you go.
I have this ridiculous thing where I want somebody to be eating Fruit Loops but with orange juice instead of milk, and I can't figure out why I want that in the book, or where it would go.
And it's funny that you say that because I keep wanting to work in cereal into one of my books too, which is I want to work in where somebody, it's a crime thriller, and the main antagonist, the killer, pours the milk into the bowl before the cereal.
Same.
Yes, that's my hope.
Well, thanks so much. It looks like John's hovering. They're wanting you to get.
We do not want to keep John waiting. Things can get pretty rough if John keeps.
Yes, and Marmalade Parade. It's a fantastic book. It's a very strange, interesting book. One of the most interesting ones I've read for a long time. And yeah, I'm at MC Joudrey.
And that's saying a lot coming from
Yes,
JD.
no, honestly, I if someone's out there reading strange books, that's me. Yes, well, thanks again for having me. I hope I filled in okay for you, George. George was my big mentor.
Can I get a big round of applause for Jonathan for yeah.
Again, no further ado, Matt's going to be signing books, and John will walk you through The better John.
It's a better John.
Not at all. Thank you both so very much. Thank you all for being here tonight. The procedure really isn't that complex. In a moment, there'll be kind of a moment of chaos as people try to line up right down this aisle here. That'll calm down momentarily, and if the line does look too intimidating, feel free to stay in your seat. You can come up and get a copy of the book signed before you pay for it. Just please remember to pay for the book before you physically leave. We very much appreciate it. Huge thanks to Guernica Editions, to Jonathan Ball for steering us through the conversation, and give one more loud round of applause.
Thanks for coming, everybody.